if there is something wrong, whether it being during sex or during the date, please tell me, hey, this isn't going to work out. I want you to feel comfortable enough to say that.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that on my end that I'm making that environment known. And if you don't feel comfortable enough to say that, for me, I feel like I haven't done my part as a decent person.
Hi, thanks for having me back. I just wanted to say I cannot get over the fact that I'm looking at handcuffs. I'm not offended. I just love that I looked over and saw handcuffs and then was pointed out to the paddle. And I'm scared I might get pregnant just sitting on this bed. So
my bed sheets are clean, I promise.
I'm just giving you shit. I'm actually really kind of turned on and impressed, so don't worry.
Well, cool. That's the idea.
That is the idea.
I don't use these often enough because they don't.
I just love how you have like the bolt in the wall, like the hook that holds them. It's all very well thought out.
Bondage is something you have to put work into if you want to do it right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not.
Yeah, you can't just wing it. I tried to just wing it early on. I was like, no, this is not going to work. People are going to get hurt.
Exactly. Like, you got to plan it out.
KJ's talking like
communication.
You're talking like you come from a very experienced story relating to this.
I will be honest. Yes, I have. And
awesome.
Did something go awry once?
Not just once.
Oh, wow.
Multiple times you had mishaps?
Multiple times there were mishaps, but through a lot of mistakes, much like in comedy, is like
trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error. Eventually, you'll find what works and what doesn't.
Yep.
Do you care to share a little like excerpt of what happened?
It's a perfect analogy, actually. That's a perfect good analogy.
Well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it is perfectly. I will say that any advice I can share when it comes to BDSM or anything along those lines, communicate, have consent. It's just that is a huge thing. Yeah. That is the base
you just said a buzzword that I think would really help take us into what I wanted to talk about.
All right.
Frank looks like
consensual sex.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we were setting up this session,
is CNN.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
today's recording, I think we had talked about covering the Aziz Ansari scandal.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of passé now. It happened a couple weeks ago. No one's talking about it anymore.
Yeah, but the culture surrounding it is still very
right.
real,
it's still very
right.
It's still very relevant, and it's still very it's very much an issue. And as comedians, I don't know if I can speak for myself that it kind of hit close to home as far as like a fellow comedian who I'm sure some of us at one point have admired or looked up to. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of his, but he's a comedian, and as fellow comedians, just like with Louis C.K. and whatever. I mean, it hits closer to our industry. Obviously, hits our industry directly. So I don't know. I wanted to kind of dive into that if you guys are up for it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's hear your. I feel like I want to just hear Lindsey's 2-minute, whatever you have.
Sure. My elevator speech on Aziz? Okay.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What happened and how you feel.
Okay, so thank you for opening that up for me as the cis female in the room. I read the article, the initial one that was published by Babe, and I think there was a lot of hype surrounding it being published before people could even like dive into it. There was a lot of hype. Like the first thing I heard was Aziz has been accused of sexual harassment and like he's another predator. And then I read the article and I had an overwhelming feeling of this is not sexual harassment. I took away from the coverage of that night on their date as a date that went awry. Not awry in the sense of her being violated necessarily. Again, okay, I guess I should say this. As a woman, I don't like to see any other woman hurt, any other person hurt, male or female or transgender, or any person hurt. So if she walked away from that scenario feeling violated, then, you know, I feel bad. But at the same time, it's like I couldn't help but take away a sentiment after reading this of kind of, I was angry. I was irritated, and maybe irritated is a better word. A lot of women have been in this scenario where we go on a date and it might lead to something that we didn't plan on it leading to, and that doesn't mean we were harassed. It doesn't mean that we were violated. Where I lost a lot of but where a lot of the story lost credibility for me was after I read that they had performed oral sex on one another. I mean, you know, he went down on her. She went down on him. It was a date that turned into drinks, that turned into physical sexual exchanges. And, you know, was he maybe tasteless in some of his approaches? Fine. Was he maybe, you know, even aggressive? Okay, sure. But he did not force sex onto her. He did not forcefully penetrate her. He did not keep her there against her will. When she wanted to leave, she left. Yeah. And I mean, I guess that doesn't mean that she didn't feel uncomfortable. I'm not discrediting that necessarily, but as females, we have to take responsibility too for what we do consent to. And if she walked away from that date feeling let down or feeling uncomfortable or feeling bad about the whole thing, that could very well mean that she's trying to organize something personal that has nothing to do with Aziz.
So like what then? Like what would compel her to be I agree, it doesn't sound like a very good date.
No, I mean, and unfortunately, and that sucks. It's unfortunate.
So, but I wonder then what would compel somebody to say, okay, I'm going to take this to a media outlet. Like what? Why? Like what's the motive to do it?
That's a thing. Okay, I'm glad you pointed that out. I mean, it's not like I just think, okay, it's like I'm kind of jumping all over because it works me up, the whole thing. I just don't. Here's the first thing I was going to say. The timing of it was irritating because he had just won a Golden Globe. And they had their date and their encounter a year prior. And there's been all this buzz and all these scandals coming to the forefront in the media with different people being called out. Weinstein, Louis C.K., Bill Cosby a while back. The list goes on, unfortunately. And after I read this date and read the recount of it, I don't feel Aziz Ansari should be categorized with those other men.
Well, I don't know. I guess I think I agree with. There is a two-part dynamic. Women can also. I think feminism is a very feeble movement if it begins and ends with "Please, Mister, don't rape me," and that's where it ends, and It's up to me if I do or not. But I also think. I think people struggle to understand like what rape culture is, that it is very subtle sometimes, and there are things like it's very possible that she might have been very uncomfortable, and the reason that we are wanting to defend Aziz so much is because it had to happen to like a beloved sweetheart that we all kind of like.
That's part of it.
I'm trying to imagine the same exact story, but like Dane Cook. We're all gonna be like, dude, this motherfucker. Don't you know?
Yeah,
I just know I probably would, but it's like, Aziz, no. You're a sweet baby boy.
That's a particle of it. However, I think the bigger issue here.
I'm not even sure if I dislike Dane Cook or not. I just know I'm supposed to.
And from an impact standpoint, yes, I get what you're saying about his character and what his persona is and what his image is in the limelight. However, I just cannot get around what I read and it not adding up in my mind as a woman to her being violated. And my biggest takeaway from it and what I concluded, and again, I wasn't there, I'm not her, I can't speak for her. I'm speaking from my perspective, from my own experiences, and I acknowledge that. So this is what I thought when I was done reading it. She was probably too young to be going out with him. She's a lot younger than him.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's in his mid-30s, she's in her mid to late 20s. This might be, the things he was doing might not be anything she's ever been exposed to before. Sticking his fingers down her throat, sexually, using certain verbiage are things that she might not have experienced before and made her feel uncomfortable, scared.
Possibly, yeah.
But that's not, women can get into situations with men and let things go too far because they might think they owe that to the man. That's not necessarily the male's fault. If you are struggling with something emotionally as a female and you're conflicted or you have not reconciled yet what it is you feel your body should be exposed to or what you want to give physically, if you're reconciling that's not necessarily on the male.
I would say it's on the male to be able to recognize social cues and your baggage is not my fault, but I should understand when you have it, and I should be able to say, okay, well, maybe
you should respect it. But to unload someone's baggage and uncover someone's baggage takes multiple dates, not just one. And
before you shove their fingers down their throat, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, maybe he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on the fingers in the.
He was like making a V shape.
Okay.
And putting them down her in her mouth.
That sounds uncomfortable.
And then touch. Well, yeah, I'm sure it wasn't hot. But or maybe he thought whatever, and then touching her. What? Okay, what?
But all right, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But the article was really explicit, and that's what pissed me off. It was like this explicit, detailed report of their date. Their date,
right? Not
him taking her behind a dumpster and raping her. Not him, pushing her into a closet at a party and whatever.
Yeah, well, that's not how most rapes happen. I wouldn't say. I don't think he's a rapist. I don't think that he deserves to go to jail, and I do think it's mostly it is just a bad date. I think this person, found out that. Oh, now this dude's getting Golden Globe now.
Yeah, he hurt me one night, and I'm gonna call him out.
Okay, and so my I think what's upsetting you, and I would agree, this upsets me too. Yeah, call out if you have somebody who's an offender in your mind, call them out. Whether they're famous, whether they're liked, whoever the fuck it is, call it out right away. And I know that I realize why it's scary for women to do that, but
I recognize that too. The consensual oral exchange and the date aspect of it, I'm sorry, for me, made it less credible for her to accuse him of being a sexual predator or violating her because she was consensually giving him head. She was consensually at his apartment. She was making choices that night. We have to own our choices. And if females are going to be empowered, if we're going to get any further or meet men in the middle and live more cohesively, we can't cower down to always saying he hurt me. No, you have a choice in situations. He did not hold her there against her will.
Yeah. I don't like when the movement of feminism is reduced to it's just asking Mr. Please don't be mean to me, and it's up to me if I am or not. I just feel there is, like you said, there's a choice. You have a choice, and you are empowered to do things. It's not just asking pretty please don't hurt me.
That's it. It's exactly what yes. KJ, I'm really interested in hearing some input from a transgender perspective.
Okay.
Please.
So, all right. Didn't mean to be as quiet, but I wanted you to.
No, of course. Thank you for letting me finish.
From my perspective, I did read an article. I believe it was the same one, and it did seem more like a date gone wrong. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's just I'd be lying if I said I had a clear point of view on this. Honestly, I don't. While I am the person to where okay, this woman says it was unwanted, and this guy's trying to justify what he did. I have a serious freaking problem with that. But then it's in this certain situations, I can't make heads or tails of it, so I have to just keep my ears open, my mouth shut. because I want to try to learn and understand. I mean, from my perspective, there are times, at least for me, it's like I still understand I have male privilege, and I don't always dress the way I do, and sometimes like a couple of days from now, you might see me jeans, t-shirt, leather jacket,
right?
No nail polish, no nothing, even a beard. Like, and I can actually grow a beard. It sucks sometimes, but
mine grows in like a day.
At least for me, yours is nice.
I shaved this morning.
No,
I'm
really?
kidding.
I was about to say that's some medieval hair
beard right now, just so everyone knows.
But and for me, it's like that's why for me dating is, I won't say it's difficult because of other people, but I've made it difficult not difficult. I've decided to take a step back from approaching people that I like, or even messaging them on Tinder or whatnot. Like, I want to feel like if there is something wrong, whether it being during sex or during the date, please tell me, hey, this isn't going to work out. I want you to feel comfortable enough to say that.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that on my end that I'm making that environment known. Mm-hmm. And if you don't feel comfortable enough to say that, for me, I feel like I haven't done my part as a decent person.
For sure.
And does that tie into your, like what you just described? Are you referring more to like the male privilege you cited?
The male privilege being one, and also it's like not just the privilege, because like I don't consider, I mean, at least for me, it's like I look the way I do, but I don't really feel that way.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I don't feel like a man. I don't feel like a guy at all, but I also know it's a part of me, and it's something that this is where
when
this is the perspective.
When you say you don't feel like a guy, can you give me some characteristics that you think define guy that you don't feel like?
For me, not feeling like a guy is just, it's the feeling I get going to when someone tells me to go to the bathroom, or I'm in a restaurant and then they direct me to the men's restroom.
Okay, but but aside from that, like,
okay.
I was referring more to like characteristics, like, okay.
Oh,
binary ones, as far as like how we categorize or compartmentalize male and female, and how you don't identify or feel like a guy. What do you think? What is it that a guy feels like that you don't feel like?
I feel.
Do you know what I mean?
It's kind of intangible. It's like an energy thing almost. Okay. Maybe
it is. A lot of this is an energy thing, but if we're just going through like characteristics that people could see, or the
like
easier
some terms
ones.
come to mind are like macho, domineering, aggressive.
But
these are just.
But I've come across a lot of women who also that way too.
Yeah.
Right. So
part of what's happening now is just.
Yeah. No, I know. I get it.
That reminds me. I gave somebody some work advice. A woman I know who is having trouble at work with just being stepped over, and I told her she should be more assertive. And then she goes, "Yeah, I've been trying to embrace more of the male masculinity side." And I'm like, "What? We don't have a trademark on being assertive or being."
But I think this really steps into the territory of like how, especially now in this day and age, and we're still making progress, obviously, but we've made a lot as far as gender roles go in society, and the lines are getting more and more blurred, right?
I think that's a good thing.
No,
it is.
It is a good thing.
Right.
It is.
Right.
At the same time, no, I mean it's a good thing. But no, it's.
I was waiting.
Come on.
No. I'm
Tell me more.
No, it's a good thing. I am very intrigued with and interested in what will define male and female then. Or should there be definitives at all? You mentioned your beard. You mentioned nail polish. These are traits. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
these are These are ubiquitous, universal things that we apply to the binary male and female that I think, as time goes on, in a good way,
right,
are being more and more blurred, if not erased. But at the same time, if you feel more feminine than male, then what is it that, and you said it was intangible, you're saying it's an energy, I'm trying to understand that. What is it then you think that you cling to, or what is it that you feel inside of you that's more female, or can you not explain it?
It's just
a feeling.
It is a feeling that I have. It's something that it's like, it really is something I can't really explain. And
that's a beautiful thing too.
For the life of me, I wish I could. It would make this whole thing easier. Especially at work, I get asked almost every single day, "Are you a boy or a girl? What do you feel
Do you
like?"
work with kids?
I do work with kids.
Yeah,
and
they're so
from the mouths of babes.
The brutality of the words that comes from their mouths.
Yeah.
There was a time where a kid came up to me and was like, "Can I call you Mr. Miss?" I'm like, "I will accept that."
That's creative.
"Can I call you Mr. Skirt?" I'm like, "No, you cannot call me Mr. What the? Like, go to your room. Get a juice box.
Shut up.
Go in your room.
Somebody
You're
needs
on time out. You're not playing 7-Up.
Someone needs to come get you.
No, and I hope you understand that what I was saying before about erasing gender is not, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just, as someone who's never struggled with my gender identity, I want to understand more about where our gender identity is going collectively. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
In society, male and female, where is this going?
Well, I think it's important for you say it's getting more and blurred, if not erased. I'm not in the camp that we should erase it. For me, like, I identify very strongly as just a classic male.
And what does that mean to you?
It just means that all of those kind of, like, I think gender roles can go away. I would like to pick and choose what I want to do that makes me a guy.
What are some of those things? Can you elaborate?
Well, it's classic. When I say classically, I mean I'm still borrowing from some of those gender roles. Like, I like to work on my motorcycle. I like to do things that you wouldn't classically see women do. But I also like to, all of the things that embody what it means to be like a classic archetype of a man. I like to know that it's my choice to be that. It's not society telling me I have to. And that's what I feel. It's such a weight off of me to know that there's this culture happening now where it says it's up to you. You want to be that or you don't have to. And I still do want to, but I like to know that I'm not being forced to.
And I think some of it, or a lot of it, I think, is hormonal, and it's just innate, and biological.
But more so, it's conditioning. It's
a lot of
overwhelmingly so. It's conditioning,
right.
Gender roles. Yeah.
And also worth noting, it's different for each and every single person when it comes to that. That's something that and not a whole lot of people come across gender nonconforming and genderqueer or just trans people in general, and they want to speak to one of us and ask us, like, is that being a spokesperson, like we're a spokesperson for every single person,
right? And that's kind of insulting because it's like we're all individuals.
Exactly. When we have those certain terms like genderqueer or gender fuck or gender fluid, and that means something different. Like for me personally, I use genderqueer, and for me, I don't identify as either male or female. For someone else, the term genderqueer, even though they use that term themselves, that term can mean something different.
Okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So
yeah,
and I think the truth is, when it comes to this, no one really has all the answers, even those who are genderqueer, trans, or whatever.
Absolutely.
It's just, at a certain point, it's good to ask questions, but at a certain point, I know that's not what you're doing now, but I've met people, they ask so many questions because I'm like sort of an advocate for this. They're like, well, what about? And I'm like, at a certain point, can we just...
I was more or less trying to focus on, like, like the male-female binary assignments, either societal or biological.
I would recommend, there's a YouTube channel, a YouTuber, ContraPoints, who is very good at mixing the cultural part of it. She's trans and she's she's a she dropped out. She was going to be a professor or something, but she's very good at explaining the biological stuff mixed with the cultural stuff, and it's really
I'll check it out.
I'm
trying to personally like kind of find a reference point, and what came to mind was my mom sometimes growing up or even now telling me like, tone it down a little bit. Tone it. Like, I'm loud, I project, okay. I'm overt. I've been called aggressive, okay, but she's told me in terms of like how I interact with men or on dates, just try to tone it down a little bit.
Bullshit.
Well, I mean, okay,
all
yeah,
right.
but I agree.
But this was what your mom was telling you.
Well, it more or less alluding to maybe a man being intimidated by or turned off by me being, overt. That's one thing I remember that sticks out, and it comes up still to this day as an adult, where she's like, maybe be a little quieter.
Do you think that's your mom trying to like reinforce some of the classical gender roles? Like
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's a reference point for me personally in my personal life where that has come up. It's minor, but it's something. And I've noticed too, when it comes to male and females on stage performing and doing comedy, traditionally, from what I've observed, men are more frequent to go up, or more liable to go up and like talk really loud and use a lot of the stage and like be, of course I've seen females do this too. And I do that in my performance. I mean, the more comfortable I get, I'm still honing it, but as time goes on and the more I hone in on my comfort level on stage and my performance, I see myself doing this. But I remember in the beginning, and when I first started out in comedy, I'm like, God, these guys get up there with no reservation of how loud they are, or how, what they project, how they move, how they use their body. And then females, conversely,
do the opposite.
Generally speaking, I'm not saying,
right.
I noticed a trend and I could only think of how, they were raised to be more demure. Whereas a guy, go be free, run, little boy, you're the male. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do.
So and another thing when it comes to stand up, a lot of us, or maybe it's just me. Maybe I can't speak for other female comics. Maybe I have approached my stand up and my material with a very overt sexual angle, because it's my way of saying like, hey, I have sex too. I have bodily functions too. Not toilet humor, because I don't like that, but like, I pooped, like, it's freaking dumb. I just farted, like, it's stupid. But personally, I think, okay, but anyway, I'm just like, I know that I've sexualized my material or chose it. Maybe it's an easier way to like get going, is like talking about sex and talking about dating and talking about like dicks and shit. I just think that reflecting on it, maybe women do that in the beginning or throughout their comedy to assert, hey, we're having sex, we can talk about having sex, we have a choice in our sex,
right,
etc.
Yeah, well, that's good. I think things have shifted quite a bit. Where
that's good.
What's that?
That's good.
That's funny. I like that qualifier. That's good.
That's good. Well, I mean, that's a good way. That is a good. That's when you go up on stage, you do want to start. You don't want to go from 0 to 100. You start off with common ground, dating, sex, whatever. Most male comics I've noticed who are successful are not romping around on stage anymore. I feel like that.
Do you insane? No, have you observed
that?
No,
absolutely. I would say just
like the screaming and the really like robust.
Yeah. This is what it means to be a guy.
Yeah, the robust delivery of like, and that can be funny sometimes. It can work.
I'm just a witty female just in place. Where is the bedroom? You can have me later.
I'm in lace.
I'm just the Stepford comic.
Yeah, right.
I have noticed that over time, like, I loved using the stage, but I also loved having the moments where I was just in one spot and just like talking. And now I notice, like, throughout some of the last few shows I've did, I like staying in one place, and also like I haven't been feeling well, so some shows I've needed to sit down while I performed. So
okay.
That's been happening too.
Some bits call for the physicality. They call for it, but you can tell when a performer is, they're almost compensating with the physicality of it because
Right.
the material doesn't stand on their own.
Some people can open their mouths and just the tone of their voice and their monotone or their really dry delivery is hilarious in itself, and they don't even have to move from that spot the whole time.
Yeah, I've seen those acts, and I get jealous because I'm like, I can never. It's
KJ.
so good.
For those who are listening, I was pointing at myself.
Both thumbs.
And I've seen you do that. I've seen you deliver in a very like dry, immobile way with just the jokes hitting and being funny on their own. Anyway, going back to like the gender thing and maybe bringing it all the way back to Aziz.
Yeah.
What roles were they playing that night? Did she fall into some like demure victim role? Is she a victim? Because I've had women online saying, "Well, don't victim blame."
I know that's a loaded word, victim,
Right?
But I think they probably were both accepting the classical roles. Or as a woman, I'm just supposed to wait and see where the night takes me. And then as a man, I'm supposed to take control and make sure I steer this where I want it to go. We weren't there,
Right?
But I feel like
disclaimer: we weren't there.
But
I know.
this doesn't.
But it was public knowledge, and it was part of the media, and we have a right, I think, to respond.
Right, and just even if you leave that particular story alone, these are stories we all know. We all know people who
I've lived those nights.
Yeah, I have too.
I've lived those nights where like I've left a situation, maybe regretted part of it. That's on me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's what happened to this female. I'm talking about my personal account of things and my personal experience in certain situations or nights I've had with men. It's like
this is going to turn into the Malaysian airline thing where everyone just has their own theories. It's going to get really
and no one knows where it's going.
Yeah, exactly. No, I definitely have mine, and I have feelings about Aziz that I've had for years.
Which is?
Molly and I, dearly departed, we were watching him. He does this one bit that's basically he's in a bar and he's like goes up to a woman, he says, "I like your purse." He tries to talk to her because she's cute, and then she's like, "Okay," and then she trots off, and this other guy just comes up and he's like, "Hey, I like your tits," and then she's like, "Really? Yeah, I like your dick," and then they go have sex, something to that degree, where he's like, basically, I hate this because, yeah, dude, those two people that left to go have sex probably should be having sex because they did two things. Very upfront about what they wanted to do. You came up and talked about a purse, dude, and I.
So was he putting down I haven't seen the act. This was his part of his stand-up?
Yeah, it was like a special he did maybe 3 years ago. Yeah.
And so he was putting down someone being aggressive or
not even
offensive?
aggressive, but just being communicating about why they're talking to you. And I know that you have to be subtle. We're not animals. I don't think this was probably a real story, but I think people like Aziz, for a long time, he plays this character that I'm one of the nice guys. I'm not the others. I'm not the other aggressive guys. I'm one of the nice ones. I'm sweet. And so you owe me your time because I talked to you about your purse kind of thing.
Right.
And
Okay.
this guy's just trying to have sex with you. Well, sorry to break it to you. So are you, Aziz. You don't care about her purse.
Right, exactly. Fast forward, you going on a date with some younger chick who you tried to get drunk or drink together, and then you ended up going home with her and, like asking where you'd like to stick your dick in her.
Well, going back to connecting with it as comics, I think what we've begun to do as comics too, and maybe it was a mistake, it's almost endearing when a straight man goes up on stage and kind of soft-spoken and like just
unobtrusive,
and it's endearing that you talk about that you're bad with women. Louis did it too. I'm bad with women. I'm awkward.
I don't
know. And then we say, "Oh, good. I like you." Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe it's not such a good thing.
Don't applaud that
you're
because
bad with women.
maybe if you're bad with women or feel you're bad with women, you're going to take an opportunity where you feel really macho or feel really domineering and offend them, like you did that night.
Yeah.
I am guilty of talking about my dating experience with women, about it being awkward, but in a different way. In which, like, here's the thing. Even given how I look, I still like to date women, but a lot of the women I'm into or am usually attracted to aren't really into this. So, like, I found myself in that kind of boat.
Sure.
So.
And I don't know.
And being awkward is... Everybody has had awkward. When it comes to dating, it's impossible. If you've never had an awkward dating experience. You're not going on dates. I don't know what you're doing. I know what you're saying, and I think it is frustrating. But I have a hard time believing that somebody would come forward just because something happened that was not cool. Aziz is not Bill Cosby. He's not Louis, but maybe he himself doesn't realize that he's part of a tone. There's a bit on Always Sunny where that Dennis does about the implication. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but he's talking about getting it's really fucked up. You know how Always Sunny is like dark, but he wants to get all these women on a boat, and like they bought a boat so they can get women on the boat. And then he's explaining to Mac, and he's like, and then what? And he's like, well, then they'll have sex with us. And he's like, why? Just because we have a boat? And he's like, no, because they're in dark waters. It's just us. It's the implication. And he's like, you're talking about rape? He's like, no, not rape.
Oh my.
Wow.
It's a really important bit that they do.
I think it speaks
real.
to like a bigger problem and a bigger male-female exchange that we're still really trying to navigate and we're still trying to graduate from, as far as like respect, boundaries.
Yeah. Well, I think we just put the foot on the gas this year.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be happier.
No, it's amazing. I mean, it needs a lot of exposure. It needs a lot of attention. And again, it just intrigues me more. It makes me even more interested in knowing and understanding how we identify as male and female and what that means.
For sure. And yeah, and I think it's totally valid what you're saying as far as women starting to re-examine what they expect from men on dates, and because oftentimes it is, and you'll hear almost everyone will admit it's like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just seeing what'll happen, see how I felt, going with the flow. And you should be able to do that without being attacked. But
of course,
but it is important to ask yourself, what do I want out of this interaction, and am I communicating this to the other person who's part of it? Well, I think we'll get there. I think things like this movement, we're just looking at how we look at power dynamics and stuff, and we're blowing it all up now. And I feel better than I ever have that things will.
We're moving in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. So Code Black is February 10th.
Code Black is my half hour or plus recording show at the Crowd Theater.
It's at the Crowd, okay.
And amazing.
On the 10th, on both shows, Asia Martin from Preach is hosting.
All right, on.
And then,
February 10th?
Yes. And on the February 10th show, Central Ross from Spitting Laughs Entertainment and Zanies is opening. And on the 24th, Matt Brown from Afterthoughts and Underground is opening.
Top down, Neon City, EQ waves crash in the background, like I'm living in a tape deck.
You heard from KJ Whitehead and Lindsey Shaw. Come out to the Crowd Theater this Saturday, February 10th, also the 24th. Look out for Lindsey as well at Laugh Factory sometime this month. The music is from Robots with Ray Guns, this track featuring Chicago's own Keith Masters. robotswithrayguns.bandcamp.com. I know you got something to say, and if you do, neonvoices@gmail.com.
RWR make the beat slap. We in LA, what a freak set. iPads on tour, we don't need a map. I need some RWR make the beat slap. We in Miami, where the beach at. iPads on tour, we don't need a map. I need some RWR make the beat slap. We in New York, where the streets at. iPads on tour, we don't need a map. I need some RWR make the beat slap. We in Chi-Town, where my peeps at. This is my city, we don't need a map.